Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Welcome to Morning Shot. Fires across Los Angeles have killed at least 27 people and destroyed more than 12,000 structures over the last few weeks. Although winds weakened for a bit towards the end of last week, giving firefighters a much-needed break and easing some threats, the U.S. National Weather Service says that dangerous Santa Ana winds are expected to return to the Los Angeles area this week, potentially fueling the growth of new and existing wildfires. A rapidly growing wildfire broke out some 80 kilometers north of Los Angeles, burning about 5.3 square kilometers, while two major fires, the Palisades and Eaton Fires, burning in the metropolitan area for more than 2 weeks, continue to burn currently, but are getting under control. For more insights on all this, we're joined by Stephanie Pincetl, founding director and professor at the UCLA Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for being here. Hope you and your family are doing okay and staying safe in LA.
Thank you and good morning. We're well. I just want to make a minor correction. I'm the director of the California Center for Sustainable Communities and professor at the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here. And I'm sure it's been tough the last few weeks. So lots to cover today. But let's start, Stephanie, with the origins of these wildfires. So experts say lightning is easy to be ruled out this time, but they're still facing challenges in pinpointing the exact causes of this wildfire. We know so many factors played a role in making these wildfires as devastating as they are, but what makes determining the cause so difficult here, and how do investigators piece together the clues to identify its source or sources possibly?
It's a very good question. I think we're pretty much more certain about the Eaton Fire, which all point to the electric company Edison's power line that goes through very, very rugged terrain, and because of the strength of the fire, of the wind, 100 miles an hour, 160 kilometers an hour, that spark ignited the vegetation and then blew other sparks further west into Altadena. And that neighborhood was a very old, established neighborhood. I had actually had a house there for about 20 years that was built in 1928.
Wow.
And was not really that close to the edge of the national forest. And so really the winds this time were hyper exceptional. They were just incredibly, incredibly strong. Now for the Palisades fire, it's much more complicated. There's some indication that they may have been started by a insufficiently extinguished fireworks display that had been, the firemen came to put it out, but they may not have been able to get it all. And then when the winds picked up, it blew up into this big conflagration. But in order to really know what started a fire, they need to go in and do deep forensic work, and it can take quite a long time. They have to sift through ash. They have to go, square meter by square meter. It's extremely difficult work.
Yeah, I imagine so. And looking at the footage coming out of LA, we're seeing a massive amount of available fuel combined with, like you said, the Santa Ana winds and firestorm-driven winds. So could you explain how weather in general, particularly because of these high winds and dry conditions, how they contribute to the rapid spread of wildfires like these?
Sure. So over the past two previous years, we had fairly exceptional rainfall. And so the vegetation responded to the rain and grew quite a lot. And then we were hit by very high heat, and we have not had any precipitation since March.
Yeah.
And so that, combined with an exceptionally strong set of Santa Ana winds, all fingers point towards the impacts of climate change, just exacerbating California's normal climate, which varies between very wet years and very dry years, some very high winds usually every year, but not this high. It was the perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm indeed. And speaking of the Santa Ana winds, are they becoming stronger or more frequent with these changes, or could infrastructure and environmental changes over the years be altering their impact?
Well, I think that the climate science is uncertain about the winds, but certainly putting houses in places that are very very flammable does not help the situation. And particularly in the Palisades, we have seen land use kind of creep up into the California chaparral, which is a kind of Mediterranean type scrub land that burns regularly 10 to 20 years. With this exacerbated climate and more housing and flammable materials and humans igniting fires, we are just really provoking disaster, actually.
Yeah, okay, so we know that hindsight is 20/20, Stephanie, but is there anything that could have been done differently, to reduce the likelihood or severity of these wildfires?
Not a lot, actually. I think that the conditions were, everyone agrees that the conditions were really exceptional. So California has one of the most stringent building codes around fire for housing. But those are relatively new, and both of these areas, the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire, had a lot of houses that were not built up to the latest standards, of course, right? Because it's costly to retrofit your home. So had there been more hardened houses, maybe some of those might have been spared, but the actual density of the houses was one of the issues, right? And at the same time, it's unlikely that more water would have changed anything. Really, these are forces of nature that are pretty insurmountable. It's like, how do you stop a tsunami, right? Well, pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
So I think that, to me, the comparison perhaps to the weather that one experiences in the Far East is the tsunami weather, right? Or big hurricane weather. Well, these are very similar phenomena, but ours are different, but it's the same kind of magnitude of difficulty to really counteract.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at what happens now. Beyond the immediate destruction we've been seeing, wildfires do have long-term effects on the environment. So tell us about these effects and how do they impact the safety and viability of rebuilding in the affected areas, especially with Southern California's drought conditions that have been going on for quite some time.
We are seeing some very interesting things happen in the Palisades area. Because some of the houses were built on very steep hillsides, some of them are starting to slide down the hill. So that was that was one effect that's pretty unanticipated. The residue from the fire is likely to be quite toxic. We know that the houses are now full of different kinds of plastics and materials. Yeah. So when that burns, not only does it go into the atmosphere, but it also goes into the ash. So we're anticipating that with any rain, there will be debris flows, not only serious debris flows in themselves, but also the carrying of all those materials down into waterways, including the ocean. And rebuilding, people really want to rebuild. There's a lot of talk about rebuilding exactly in the same places, just, the same number of houses and so on. So we'll see what the insurance industry has to say about that.
Oh, yeah.
And there are billions of dollars worth of damage, literally billions of dollars. And also then, what does that look like? Who's going to be able to afford to live there? Will people want to leave the area entirely? I think that it's too soon to really know exactly what's going to happen.
All right, so too soon to say. And Stephanie, before you go, from a scientific standpoint, I know you said, how do you stop a tsunami, but what strategies or innovations could possibly help communities become more resilient to future wildfires in this area? Not
a lot. Not under those kinds of conditions. We should have houses that are more fire resistant for sure. We should be much more careful with the kinds of vegetation we plant. I would not advocate for a tabula rasa, bare earth approach, but California native plants, which are not often planted, like oaks, are called ember catchers. There's other vegetation that is slow to burn. We can revegetate, but carefully and thoughtfully. But I think that overcoming the power of nature is kind of difficult in the longer term. So we should be very cautious.
We should be very cautious, and wildfires continue to pose significant challenges to the LA area. Stephanie, thank you so much for your insights and for your time, and I hope that you continue to stay safe.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We've been speaking with Stephanie Pincetl, Director of the California Center for Sustainable Communities and the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability at UCLA. Stay ahead with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.